Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host, Brittany, and today we are joined by Arthur Von Wiesenberger. And Arthur has a lengthy background that I can't even do justice because Arthur's doing everything these days. So Arthur, thank you for joining us.
Brittany, it's so great to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
So
And you know what I love is the fact that you're in Florida, I'm in California. I mean, we just have a lot of stuff in between us.
we do. We have so much in between us, and I'm a little jealous of your weather today. So Arthur, you're on TV. You work in animal advocacy. You are all over the place. Tell us what you're doing. Tell us about yourself. Tell us everything.
Everything. Okay. Well, I was born young. No, the the animal show actually came about as a result of a commercial. You may have seen it back in 2017 or so, where you had these dogs in cages and they looked emaciated. They were really sad-looking dogs, and there was that very sad song by Sarah McLachlan
Yes.
singing. And all you want to do is write a check and please turn the TV off. I don't want to watch this.
Right.
So I was asking a friend of mine who's in the shelter business, this commercial, is this helping you guys? And they said, no, for two reasons. One is when it airs, it makes people not want to go to a shelter to adopt because they think it's going to be a depressing experience. And here they're going to get their next family member.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that was happening was, which I didn't realize, that when you send that check in, that doesn't go to the local shelters. That goes to their bureaucracy and headquarters, and the shelters never see any of that money. So as a result, we thought, we should flip the narrative a little bit, because you flip the narrative, you flip the outcome,
Mm-hmm.
and get the word out that these shelters are not all horrible. In fact, most of them are getting better and better because there's more awareness of what makes a shelter successful
Right.
for the animal, first and foremost. I know a shelter out here in Santa Barbara is building a new shelter that they're going to replace their one that was built back in the 50s. And they're saying they're building it from the paws up. In other words, they're looking at the shelter from the animal's point of view. What's going to make the animal feel good? And a happy animal is going to be much more likely to be adopted. So anyway, that's how the show started. We just started as a local show within Southern California. And when the pandemic hit, our distributor, which was Cox Television, said, "Gee, this show has meaning to other people across the country because everybody's staying at home with their animals, or they're getting animals to have someone to be with at home."
Yeah.
So dogs and cats and companion animals in general were a very popular theme, and the show got picked up nationally. From there, we expanded our horizons because it was originally dogs and cats and rabbits, and that pretty much it. And then we went to barnyard animals, which would be sheep and pigs and every donkeys and horses and all that. And then from barnyard animals, we leaped to wildlife as well. So we kind of are trying to include all aspects of animals and animal welfare, and what people can do to help animals, to care for them, and just educate, because we're about education, a little bit of entertainment, hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
and inspiration. That's the main thing. We want to really inspire people.
And remind us the name of the show.
So it's called AnimalZone, and it's on the web at animalzone.org. We're also on Vimeo, on Pluto, Plex, Tubi. If you have Cox Television, which I know in Florida there's a number of Cox stations out there, you can pick it up every Saturday morning at 8:30 in the morning. And we're actually hoping to see us get into other streaming platforms. There are some on YouTube as well, but
Mm-hmm.
primarily I'd say Vimeo is the number one place to find all the episodes, or animalzone.org.
And what season are you on of the show? You said you started around 2018, right?
Right. We started in 2018. There are 13 episodes per season. And we are now just about to start airing season 14, which was filmed in
Wow,
Hawaii. Yeah,
that's
that's
awesome.
that's amazing. I mean, I was amazed we got to the 13th episode in the first season. I thought we'll never make it that far, but it was just lucky timing. And I think the people are very interested in animals a lot more maybe than they used to be.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a big part of I think most people's homes. You know, a lot of people, animals are like right now, three little cats in here. They're all rescues, and I can't imagine life without them.
Right. Yeah, my four dogs, I can't imagine life without them. Even though I complain about them sometimes, I still love them like they're my children.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Arthur, you've seen the realities of rescue. And if you had to break a myth or, try to just release a message that maybe not the general public knows, like, is there something that you could relay to the listeners about animal rescue?
Well, there are a lot of different aspects to animal rescue, and certainly shelters are, for the most part, a godsend. I mean, we're so
Hmm.
lucky in this country to have well done shelters that are really, most of the people that work in the shelter world have big hearts, and that's number one because animals know if you care for them. Animals know if you when you adopt them, they know that you've rescued them. I mean, all these cats, like this one, she know she knows she was rescued, and they love that. I mean, that's one of the most important things about animals is that they know so much more than we even know they know. You know,
Hmm.
they're very perceptive. They have incredible hearing and incredible eyesight, and they're great. I mean, I can't say enough about it. So when you have a shelter that is aware of that and cares for the animals and helps in the community, because really looking after the animals in a community helps the whole community.
Right.
Getting the animals off the streets, getting vet care affordable to people who can't afford vet care but have animals, because the last thing you want to do is have an animal separate from their person, you know,
Hmm.
or their people, because they really, really, they love being with a person and someone who's going to love them.
Hmm.
And there's a love with an animal like nothing else on the planet. I mean, I think an animal's love is it's almost childlike. You know, if you
Yeah.
think of your dogs. Your dogs are probably like what, maybe 2 or 3 year old. They're acting like 2 or 3 year olds as far as their minds are,
Right.
in some ways. But an animal is uncompromising, right? You don't care what I do as long as I love you and take care of you,
Hmm.
and as long as you feed them and you keep close to them. I mean, this little girl, Electra, she was born in a up in the Sequoias and was a wildcat,
Oh,
and
wow.
she where she was born was a place where there were a lot of predators. So I said, well, I can't leave her here. I've got to take her with me. And I
Hmm.
brought you down, and she's been here ever since. And now she's got two brothers that came from L.A. Kitten Rescue. They were rescues as well, and we were filming there. It was right down in Los Angeles. And this one black and white cat who's now shying away. He climbed up on my shoulder during the interview and started licking my ear. And I mean, what are you going to say to a cat like that? I go, well, you're
Right.
coming with
He knew
me.
what he was doing. He had that
Yep.
planned.
And he had a bonded brother, so I had to get him too. So,
Right, of course.
and we have donkeys, we have hennies. I mean, this is like a little Noah's Ark over here. But anyway, um, I think what people might probably one of the messages I'd probably say to people who are listening is that anyone can make a big difference in an animal's life.
Hmm.
And there's so many different ways to do that. From volunteering at shelters, which is a great thing to do. I know you do that, and I mean, that's terrific. Fostering animals, which is great. A lot of people really have done great things fostering an animal that just needs a home while they wait for the adopter. And
Right.
there's so much information, as you said. You suddenly start learning about the idiosyncrasies of the animal, what kind of home the cat or the dog might do best in. Maybe it's a dog that is high energy, so you need to be able to walk them a lot. Or you
Hmm.
might have a dog that's going to be a couch potato, which is great if you sit around and watch TV.
Yeah.
And then I think, of course, donating money, that's always one of the more important things on every shelter's list, because a lot of them are not, they don't have funding coming in from anybody but the community. There's a few that get grants from foundations. There's a few that get money from cities or states, because they're involved with like county animal control, helping
Hmm.
doing that work. But for the most part, they need our help. And I always suggest people give locally. That's so important, because you're helping your local community by helping the local shelters.
Hmm. I'm going to back up to what you said about shelters. Is a lot of people that work there, they do it out of love for animals. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. You don't work at a shelter for money. It's not good pay. You don't work there for your mental health, because I can tell you those employees go through it. I mean, a lot of them work 10, 12, 14 hours a day. They see the worst of the worst. They're seeing sick animals, abused animals. And so I think a lot of people forget that the people working in the shelters are just doing it because of love and out of passion and to truly help these animals. And whether that's a no kill shelter or a kill shelter, regardless, whoever's working there is working there because they care. They don't, I've said this before and I'll say it a million times to really get it through to people, but kill shelters, they don't want to be kill shelters. It's just the hand they were dealt, whether that's, their funding or the capacity or just whatever situation they have set up. And they've got to be able to make room for other dogs to come in, especially right now with so many shelters just being overrun and just way over capacity. And I don't know, are you guys seeing that in California as much as we are in Florida, just seeing the shelters just getting so many animals in?
It's strange. Ever since the pandemic hit, we actually had a shortage of animals. And they, here, for example, in Santa Barbara, the local shelters were having to import animals from other shelters. They're transporting them in from Bakersfield and Fresno, and a lot of shelters in the Central Valley, which is more overwhelmed with animals. But on the coasts, there was a shortage, and so that is really challenging. When you have an abundance of animals that you need to find homes for, and then you got areas where there's no animals. So I think there's a big business to be had in transporting animals from one place to another.
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't see a lot of people talking about transfer. I had someone on the podcast last season, and he does a lot of transport from shelters in Florida and Texas, and he'll take them kind of up the East Coast to a lot of rescues, like in New York and New Jersey. But I haven't really talked to too many people kind of doing that over on the West Coast. So if anyone listening has the availability, has the funds, it sounds like that could be a need, moving dogs from some of the southern areas that are just so overwhelmed and moving them to areas that maybe could find them homes. That could be fruitful.
That would be a great thing for the animals. And there's like pilots for pups, and they
Hmm.
fly animals in their airplanes, which I think is great. We were filming this at one place in Las Vegas during the downturn in Las Vegas a few years ago, where they had gotten this dog. They picked up this dog that they didn't know where the dog came from, but the dog ended up staying in the shelter, and it turned out that the dog had belonged to a guy who came to Las Vegas to visit his family, and the dog was in the yard and somehow jumped out of the yard and disappeared. And they thought the dog was gone, because they didn't hear about the dog for 2 years, until the dog was collected and brought in. And they found a chip, and they found out the owners lived on the East Coast.
Wow.
So they were trying to figure out, how did this dog get from the East Coast to Las Vegas?
Yeah.
And ultimately, somebody volunteered to drive the dog all the way back to its home. And I thought,
Wow.
and in a Mercedes, I might add. I said, now that's a lucky dog.
Yeah. Yeah. So on Animal Zone, are you going mostly to shelters? Are you doing like shelters and sanctuaries? What kind of places are you visiting?
Primarily shelters and sanctuaries. Those are our main focus, because they're two different kinds of things, but they're both fascinating to see, and they both have issues. I mean, our goal is to help get the word out about what they're doing and get the word out so that they might be able to find help, funding, donations, to, volunteers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, a shelter obviously is where they have a revolving door. Hopefully, the dogs and cats are coming in and going back out to loving forever homes. Sanctuaries, of course, totally different. That's where an animal's been rescued, and they're going to be there for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Either they could be a difficult animal, if it could be an aggressive dog, for example, or it could be, a snake that nobody wants. I mean, there's all kinds of different kinds of sanctuaries. But it's a wonderful thing that someone is doing that they're building an environment where they can and they can afford to look after animals for many years. I mean, imagine a parrot that lives over 100 years old. I mean, a bird sanctuary is a long-term commitment.
Yeah.
But that those are really important. And we also like to talk. Sometimes we'll get into some other aspects of animal welfare and different types of people that are involved, from animal control officers who are really quite interesting. And we met a wonderful one up in Ojai, California, that has a big heart, knows the rules, but really cares for the animals, and that's
Mm-hmm.
that's what you want to see in governmental type of organizations, and also the fact that she as a woman, she was very good at going into situations where there was an animal abuse or animal hoarding, some of the negative sides of animal welfare, and she knows how to deal with it in a positive way, in the most positive way you can. No. The one thing about AnimalZone is we don't track the negative stories on the show because there's so much of that you can find everywhere else.
Yeah.
What we really want to do is focus in on the positive, that showing what people who are making a difference in an animal's life are doing and how they're doing it, because we're hoping that other people will follow in those footsteps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I said this on a few episodes ago, talking to a rescue down in Volusia County in Florida. Animal rescue will show you the best of the best and the worst of the worst. So you're getting both ends of the spectrum. And so it can be rewarding. So even, the people who are like, oh, it's so tough, I can't go to a shelter to volunteer. You still see the best, and you're really helping those animals. So you've been to quite a few sanctuaries. Are there any that really like stand out to you that are very memorable?
Gee, almost all of them are really memorable. They really
Yeah.
are. I mean, it's just, it's. I mean, I've been to a sanctuary, for example. There's one in Central California that just rescues pit bulls, which I
Mm-hmm.
have a very fond place in my heart for pit bulls because I had one, and he was the best dog I've ever had. And pit bulls were getting such a bad rap back a number of years ago. I mean, I think it's a little bit better now, but you know, unfortunately, because of the fighting dogs and bad owners, pit bulls were getting painted with the wrong kind of brush. I mean, actually, pit bulls are the most loving, kindest dogs you can find. I mean, if anyone remembers Spanky in our gang, with Petey, the pit bull that had the circle around his eye, that
Mm-hmm.
was drawn by I think it was one of the famous cosmetic company guys who drew Petey's eye, but that's another story. Any case, this sanctuary that had just pit bulls, it was wonderful because they had built these rooms where every pit bull had his own room with a couch in it,
Wow.
and they had played music in the rooms. I mean, it was like classical music, so it was very mellow. And these dogs were just so relaxed, and they had yet a big play yard where they could pull on tires and do all kinds of stuff like that. But it was for their forever home, and the people who were looking after these pit bulls just loved the animal and wanted to make sure that these ones would not go off to any kind of euthanasia situation. So. And they continued to do that. That was a great one, and it wasn't luxurious at all. It was rustic, which a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sanctuaries are. I mean, they don't have
Right.
big budgets. And yet, then the other day when we were shooting, and this is one of the episodes that will come up that we filmed in Hawaii, we went to this woman who was in the real estate business on the mainland, and she moved to Maui
Mm-hmm.
and bought a ranch up in kind of East Maui, and and this place was unbelievable. It was uh, almost like a fantasy because you saw dogs and cats all mingling together, and a turkey walking by, and then a pig came over, and even little guinea pigs were hopping around on the grass lawns. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going, nobody seems to be worried about anybody else. They all seem to be getting on. And she said, well, I meditate about peace and happiness. And I think that they all feel that. So they know that they're safe. They know they're looked after. They don't have to fight amongst themselves. It was pretty much kind of the Garden of Eden out there.
Yeah.
And of course, being in Hawaii, these animals have the most beautiful view and
Uh-huh.
gorgeous palm trees, and I went, wow, to be in this sanctuary, I'd be happy, and that's their forever home.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So, what call to action do you have for anyone listening to this? How can people help? What's the importance of their help? Just a general call to action.
Well, people are the most important part of the formula because without people who care for their animals, we have a problem. And one of the first things I try to encourage people to do is learn as much as you can about animals. Whether and any you may be looking at a dog, you may want a specific breed, you may want to be have a bird or a cat or some other animal. Do your research because it's so important to be educated, and that's one of the things I think that's lacking. You don't hear about a lot of education, and unfortunately, the school systems or at homes. Growing up, parents were very my parents were very focused on telling me what is good and not good about dealing with an animal. How you have to be polite and kind and gentle and all the things that we've grown up with. I don't necessarily see that today. I
Mm-hmm.
don't see the kind of education that animals should inspire. So you need to teach yourself a little bit about animals. And you also need to teach your friends and your family and all that they all understand kindness because, what did Gandhi say? We can judge a society by the way they treat their animals. And it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that. We filmed in places like Switzerland and we filmed in Hawaii and we filmed in the United States. And every single place is a little bit different. And I think there's a lot to learn from each one. Like, for example, in Switzerland, they have a lot of cows, the cowbells you see in the Swiss Alps. And those are the farmers' cows that are out there eating the grasses in the summertime, and the bells are ringing. And you think, wow, this is just like, where's Heidi? That's all we're missing. But what they found out when they did some studies was that the cows that were in the cowbells, the quality of the milk and milk products they were producing was not as good as the cows that weren't wearing the cowbells. And they determined the reason why is the cows wearing the cowbells are stressed. They're
Mm-hmm.
stressed from the noise of the cowbell ringing incessantly and from the weight of the bell, which is pretty heavy. So now the Swiss have, they're thinking, they went ahead and they said, we'll just put the cowbells and hang them in the barn, and we'll give them GPS trackers so that the farmer can still find his cows, but they're not going to be stressed.
Mm-hmm.
So little things like that, you learn every country has its own unique qualities. So the more we do this show, the more we're learning, which I
Yeah,
like.
absolutely. Arthur, where can people find you? Where can people find the TV show? Tell us website, social media, everything.
Very kind. Well, we are, as I said, the website is animalzone.org, and you can find us on the internet. That's probably the best place to see episodes because we have a lot. But as I mentioned before, if you have Tubi, Plex, Pluto, Roku, you can also watch the show if you go to Animal Zone on those streamers. As far as social media, we have a social media page on Facebook, Animal Zone Show, Instagram, uh, um, uh, X, formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn. So we're on those social media platforms right now. We're hoping to get on them more, but I tell you, it's
A
it's
lot
pretty
of
much a
work.
one man show, and so I'm having to learn all these things as well. But we think that and we're always open to ideas. You can sign up for newsletters, but you can also communicate directly with me if you have some story that you think we should think about to put in our um, box of wishes, because we do travel all over to film this show. Luckily, we've managed to work well with hotels and some transportation organizations, so we can afford to bring a very nimble crew. We'd like to come to. I want to come to your place, and and maybe when we're in Florida, we should be in touch because who knows? That could be a fun thing. You said you're 2.5 hours from Orlando, right?
Yeah, 2.5 from Orlando here in Jacksonville. And I got some places to take you, both for animals and for good food. I promise we have some good food here. I know people don't think that, but I got a few restaurants for you.
Brittany, you just sold me on that. Both the animals and the food, because I used to do food shows. So yeah, definitely that would be great.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, but we welcome any kind of comments, suggestions, recommendations. That would be great.
Arthur, thank you so much. We appreciate you being on the show and can't wait to see some of the new episodes.
Thank you, Brittany. Really a pleasure. Have a great day. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.